everyone. My name is Dana, and welcome to the Coalition. I have finally seen the glory that is Halo, the TV series, and I'm here to say that it actually isn't that bad. Like, it doesn't suck. Not at all. I wish that I could have watched more, but they only showed me 2 episodes, and what I did see, I liked, but it also left a lot more. It left a lot of questions. It left a lot of me wondering where we going with certain situations and with certain characters. But overall, I was very well pleased at the direction we are going into. So, for those who don't know about this, this series has been in developmental hell for like 15 years. It saw everyone from like Peter Jackson was supposed to direct it at one point, and then Steven Spielberg himself was supposed to direct it. But it never happened. Instead, we ended up getting the series is written and created by Kyle Kinning and Stephen Kane. It is directed by Otto Bathrust, but it is still executive produced by Spielberg, who, even though he's just the executive producer, he had very hands-on experience with this. He from everything from the casting to the structure of how the show would look, he was involved in. He's not just someone who threw his name on there. He is someone who is heavily involved in, and that's a good thing because you need that big name to kind of draw in the audience. And as much as I love the cast, they're not big names yet. They are someone that we know. We know of Paulo Schreiber because he was porn stash. We know of Bokeem Woodbine, but to sit down and be like, he gave this performance in this, so we can pinpoint every movie that he's been in. Not really. Bokeem is the kind of actor who is really great on screen. When you see him, you don't want him to leave. You're kind of wondering, where is he again? But it's really hard to remember what movie he was in. So hopefully with this, we all can remember that he was in the Halo series, he was Soren, and that his character was actually good. We'll get into that a wee bit later. Now, I know that video game uh, enthusiasts, the Halo hardcore legends are going to be like, this is kind of not what I wanted. I wanted the exact adaptation of the video game, and this is kind of not that. This is everything that's kind of leading to Halo Reach. This is the events that you can say that are happening before that, and so because of that, it is an original story that is greatly influenced by the video games. There are elements where they actually pull from video games. There's a lot of battle, there's not a lot, but there's this opening battle sequence that's like that's the video game. The sound when he dropped this, oh my gosh, that's from the sound of this. So let me just kind of explain what's going on. This is completely spoiler free, so I'm not going to say anything about the details of what the show is about. But basically, we have two warring sides. So you have the Covenant, which is like an alien covenant that, they are just plowing down things near destruction and they are killing indiscriminately. And then there's the UNSC, which we know as the Spartans. And these are super soldiers. These are people who don't feel, they're emotionless, and they just go out there and they're in command and they're going to wipe out the covenant and anything else that comes in their way. And they cannot feel, like I said, they're emotionless and they're just completely like programmed to be like, yes, this is what's going to happen. And they're super soldiers on top of that. So what it ends up happening is there's a war. There's a lot of battles that are taking place. There's a war between the Covenant, the alien, and the Spartans, which are the humans, super soldiers. But what it does is that it shows two sides of the story and it shows why they are trying to reach this device and what it would mean for the end of their war with each other if each side got the device and what it could mean vice versa. Like what happens if the Covenant got it, what it could do to the Spartans, what happens if the Spartans get it, what it could do to the Covenant. And so this really shockingly was very space politics, which you can argue and say it's very similar to Star Wars. And it is. There are parts where I'm like, this is out of Star Wars. This here may be from Raised by Wolves. This is Star Trek. There are elements that have it seemed like they've taken from different series and shows and things that we've just known through in movies and just throughout histories and kind of pieced it together. But at the same time, it does still feel like it's very original and it does feel like it's very fresh. Th- In the opening sequence, there is this battle, and it is a brutal rated R battle where we see people just explode We see the violence and the brutality of war, and it was like, I wasn't used to that. I'm used to like pew pew pew, and you get shot and you're like, "Ugh," and that's it. But we see actual explosion, and we see people covered in blood, and it is like they could just explode at any moment. In fact, it reminded me of The Boys season 2. Remember, there was one of the supers who can make people's heads explode. We don't get the head explosion, but their bodies explode, and they are exploding indiscriminately. So we can have everyone from like a man to a child is getting exploded. And I'm like, can you put that on television? Is that proper? I like it. It's bloody. But like I was saying, there is this complete ambush of a town that I'm not going to get into because it's spoilers. And they're killing, like I said, indiscriminately. They're trying to search for something, and in comes the Spartans, and it creates this huge battle between the Spartans and the Covenants, and they're fighting, and this everything is like just bloody and a hot mess. And then you have civilians who are just minding their business, and they're just being killed left and right. And because of that, there is, like I said, people die, but like everything else, there's always that one survivor, and that one survivor ends up changing the events for what's going on with this war, and also what's going on with Master Chief. And then when we see Master Chief finally on screen during this battle that's like 15, 20 minutes long, he is like this big presence. You see these people and these aliens are fighting, and then he's like, boom, he drops in on the scene, kind of does like a superhero pose, but without it being really, really corny. And you're like, "Oh, it's about to go down." And guess what? Things go down where it's just really exciting, and you see that he is someone who is well trained. This is not like your soldier who just learned how to touch his toes. He is well trained. He is just battle is just nonstop. It is very bloody. It is violent, and it is something that will completely reel you in for like the first 15 to 20 minutes. That's how they set the tone. Where you're like, "Oh, okay, this is where we're going." And you kind of feel that video game vibe with it too when you're fighting. There are elements that really do feel like it's ripped out of the video game, like I was saying. Um, but without saying anything, there's this girl who we do know is played by Yeren Han. She plays Kwan, and she is a survivor of a battle. And because of that, she's trying to she latches on to Master Chief, which I'm not going to say why or what happens. And the both of them end up on a journey together that kind of shifts the way that we've known Master Chief from the video games, from the books, from the series of comic books. It shifts that personality. And I don't know whether or not hardcore video game fans are going to like that shift, but he becomes more human. We do know that he's a super soldier where he doesn't feel, there's no emotions. I think at one point he doesn't get hungry, he doesn't eat, but with this and with the direction that they go into, Master Chief starts questioning things. He starts questioning who he is as a person, their mission, the Spartans, and what is really going on behind the scenes, the politics of it all, and if it's really worth it. And because of that shift, Master Chief does take off his helmet. It's a very like a Mandalorian thing because you're not gonna take off the helmet, and he takes it off. And it's not like for this one moment where, like, for example, when Mandalorian was looking at Baby Yoda when he was saying goodbye. This is a moment where he's trying to show that a person can trust him. So he's like, look, this is really me. I'm speaking to you as the man. And I'm like, cool, that's great. Are you going to put that helmet back on? No. And in episode 2, he's just like walking around like with the helmet, and he is just completely off. And I'm like, what is going on? This is very weird. The only explanation that it really feels the reason why is because he is unsure of himself, and he is unsure of the life that he has led. He doesn't know what's going on with his past. He doesn't remember anything. And what's interesting is the propaganda that's out there, from the Spartan, well, by the that's The propaganda that's out there, where how the civilians view Spartans, they become very fearful of them, and they become kind of like this big super soldier thing, but you don't want them around because they're going to cause this chaos. They could kill you, and they don't care about you. And it kind of shows that if you take the helmet off, you see the man behind the soldier, and people start treating him very differently than how they would once he wears the helmet again. So it's really interesting how, it's kind of two sides of a person and what they're trying to explore. If someone who's never played the video games, I think it works for them. I don't know how the fans of the video games will take that. Will they just start raging on the internet and what is going on? But it does show the complicated relationship that he has with himself and with the orders that is given to him. And it also overall shows the complicated relationship of the side characters that he's involved with. We do have, what I can say, is Bokeem Woodbine, who's just amazing. He's so good. He's a Soren. Um, he plays someone who knows John, Master Chief, um, and he's trying to convince him of certain things in his life that actually did happen. And Master Chief John is like, no, this is not a certain way. But they have this really complicated relationship that goes back for a while, and so he doesn't feel as if Soren is the one who would lie to him. So that adds to the complication of what Master Chief life is once was, and everything that he believed, and it rubs him the wrong way against what Soren is actually saying happened. And that's all I can say, because spoiler free. Um, Overall, what's really interesting with Master Chief is that, that voice that he had, the big booming voice that is iconic from the video games. He does not have that. They did not cast the original voice actor. They instead cast Paulo Schreiber, which we all know. He ends up his Master Chief there. He is looking like Bane, but they changed the voice, but I still think that it works. It's a very good voice. It's very efficient. I like that it shows kind of who he is, John, and then you have the Master Chief voice again showing two different characters within oneself. I thought it was very good with how they did that. Um, Overall, I will say that this was something that caught my attention. This was something that I saw the first two episodes and I'm like, okay, where's more? I really love the world building behind this. And I really do love how they place the characters. We have also other people. She comes in, she's Dr. Halsey. What's different is Dr. Catherine Halsey from the video game we know is ends up being kind of Cortana. They cast a completely different actress for this role. I feel that she is very exceptional, and it also shows she's very determined. Catherine Halsey is very determined in who she is. She's determined in her mission, and she ends up creating Cortana. And we didn't get a chance. We got a teaser of Cortana, so I can't go into Cortana and how she ends up being. But it is the original voice actress from the series that I can from the video game series. So they did stick with that. It's going to be really interesting to see how they end up playing this character, how they bring forth the relationship between Master Chief and Cortana. I know that there are a lot of things. The creation of Cortana has changed a lot. I'm not going to explain how or why or where she actually comes from. It's changed a little bit from the video games of her origin story, but it's going to be interesting of whether or not they follow the same path of the video game in terms of their relationship. Overall, I thought that this was a very decent first two episodes. It left a lot of questions. Like I said, we only got teases of certain characters and of certain informations and of missions. The war that's going on. We're not at Halo yet. We're not at the Halo stage. This is like pre-Halo, so it's we're waiting for the low. later on. Maybe we'll get that by the end of the season. I believe that this was already greenlit for season two. It was greenlit for season two. It's going to have a different showrunner because the showrunner for this kind of explained that this is a very exhausting show, and he instead wants to be with his family. He didn't know how exhausting this would be, and like I said, this is a very big, expansive show. This is something that I believe the budget was 200 million, and so they pay attention to the minute details with it. There are some things that's a little wonky, that's a little kind of not working for me in terms of special effects. And I'm like, where did the budget actually go? Because that could have been smoothed out a little bit more. There's a whole situation with Bokeem Woodbine. There's his arm, and I'm like, that looks a little. It looks a little like someone put it together with Legos. What's going on over there? But overall, I feel this was a good first two episodes. I am very interested in what they're going to do with the series. I want to learn more about these characters. I'm interested in learning about the journey of Master Chief. Overall, I will say, and this will be interesting to know what the internet is going to say because I'm expecting pure rage. Um, the video game franchise, it focused a lot on the Spartans, and it focused a lot on Master Chief. But the TV series kind of shifts that, and it's very female driven. Master Chief is still there, he's still present, but the story of that shifts everything is based on Quan. It's based on her story. It's based on what happens to her and how she affects Master Chief and what's going on forward. Everything that moves on forward and it affects this war that's happening. So it's really interesting to see whether the internet completely explodes because of that. Overall, I do say that this was still a good show. I expected a lot more of the fighting. I expect a lot more of male characters, but we did not get that. It is very diverse, which is good. But I just expected a little bit more. But it's really kind of hard to judge because it's only first two episodes. And what's really unfortunate is that on March 24th, when this does launch for Paramount Plus, you're only seeing one episode. And I do believe that one episode, yes, is good, but it's the second one that helps to hook you. And I really wish that they would have included that. I don't understand the formatting of what's really going on. I think because of that way, it feels like, oh, okay, that's nice, but what else is going on? It's easy to, I don't want to say lose interest. I just really wonder if people are going to tune in weekly or instead they're going to wait to binge this. Because for me, just seeing the two episodes, I was ready for, okay, what else do you have? And you don't. And then so now I have to wait. Not like I'm complaining, oh, well, now I have to wait longer. No, I'm just saying in general, it feels like, they should have given more episodes, especially more than one episode. So you can get really the heart and the feel and the message behind what they're trying to do, because again they did changes. This is not cut and paste from the video game. So I think that overall is very good. It's decent. It kept my attention. I was right there. I was waiting for what was going to happen next. I was following along with the story. There's a lot of politics that happen within this, and it's a lot of talking. It's a lot of talking and less pew pew pew. Um, so I don't know how that will affect people. It's a lot of politics, which is why I kind of say it's also kind of like Star Wars. A lot of people sitting around at a table talking, but there are things that do happen also. But it's a very talkative. Again, overall, pretty decent. Good job so far. I kind of liked some of the elements. I liked some of the cinematography. I liked some of the special effects. It could have did a lot more of ironing out of certain effects, but it worked. So check this out on March 24th and let me know how you feel, how you think about it. Was awful? Will you tune in weekly? Did it catch your attention? And also on the website for next week, we have interviews with the entire cast, including Paulo Schreiber. And we end up discussing about him playing Master Chief and John, whether or not he views them as two different characters. And we talk about the memory loss and the backstory really of him. And we also talk to Cortana, the actress who plays Cortana, and voicing that character for now the series. And we talked to the actress, Yurin Ya, who is the driving force behind this whole show, and also we have interviews with the showrunner and the executive producer and the people at 343 Industries. The video game creators were involved with this series, and why did they decide to drift away from what they created in the series to do this for a TV show that's completely different and fresh? They say, fresh and new, and so it introduces people who have never played Halo to what this is, and it also is kind of something special how they added little sprinkles of the game in order to get the fans who play the game involved and excited for when they do reach that Halo and what's really going on. So once again, thank you. Have a good day, afternoon, evening, and I'll see you later.